What's going on, guys? So this is going to be a really interesting video. Some of you who have followed my channel, my main channel, BigTruckBigRV, for a while, will remember some content that was filmed a while back, and it was definitely very emotional content because it involved me and my cousin driving from Texas to Florida after Hurricane Michael within like 3 days or 2 days after the storm had rolled through, maybe even sooner than that, to pay a visit to my family in Florida that had been ravaged by this storm. And this was kind of sight unseen because we hadn't even been able to talk to them because all the cell phone towers were down. So we made a 14-hour drive over to Florida with a trailer, with equipment and stuff, just so we could go over and help and do whatever we could. We brought some generators with us. We brought a lot of water and supplies. And when we got there, it was pretty horrific. And when we got to my brother's home, it had absolutely been ravaged by the storm. His whole neighborhood. It was crazy to see homes from the front that looked normal, and then you'd walk around to the back, and the entire back of the house was collapsed. And his house, or sorry, his neighbor's house right next door to him had completely been obliterated. The whole roof had been ripped off, and my brother's home had been impacted. So this is a special video because it's kind of a recap on what happened, but more so, it's going to focus in on the RV experience that happened after the storm with my brother. All right, so with me, I have my brother, and I haven't seen him in person in, what's it been, 5, 6 years?
Yeah, I think 6 years. The Hurricane Michael was in 2018, and yeah, you came down within a few days of the storm passing. That's the last time I saw you, and then the last time that our families had seen each other was about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's been too long, and we're so happy to be over here and visiting. It's been a long time coming.
It really has. It really has. And I love my brother. I love his family.
You too,
It's just honestly, when that happened, Hurricane Michael happened, it left a pit in my heart for a long time. Especially seeing what happened. And I think my first experience was when we pulled up in your driveway, and you had a large tapestry out on the grass.
Yep.
You were drying stuff out. Your wife's car was, the windows were shattered on it.
Yep.
And
totaled out.
My niece, his daughter, was on the front yard playing with the few toys that you were able to salvage.
Yep.
And it was very emotional pulling up and seeing that.
Yeah, it was a Category 4 storm, and then they upped it to a Category 5 after they analyzed everything. But our neighborhood was hit pretty hard by one of the tornadoes that spawned off of the storm, and a lot of damage. Our roof was torn off, so the rain was just pouring into the house, and everything was ruined. We did a complete loss. Our insurance company, they gave us our total policy limit because the house was a complete loss.
Yeah.
And until my brother arrived, we really didn't have anywhere else to go. We were living in the house in the back bedroom, which was the only room that the ceiling didn't collapse. And so we had the dogs, the cats, 2 dogs, 3 cats, all holed up in this back bedroom. I had a generator going, which kept the fridge running, so we had some food. And I had one power cord going back to the bedroom to power a laptop so my daughter could watch something. We didn't have any TV, we didn't have anything else. All of her toys, her whole bedroom, the ceiling collapsed on top of all of her toys. So all of the fiberglass insulation that was in the attic was now covering her entire bedroom and my computer room, which had all of my electronics in there. The kitchen was open sky. You could see the stars at night just standing in the kitchen. The living room, I had just put down wood flooring, all ruined. All of our furniture was completely ruined. Within a few days, we had mold growing on the walls.
Yep. So, to backtrack a little bit too, right before the storm hit, Floridians are a lot like Texans when it comes to storms. Unless you've been hit by a major storm, oftentimes you think, well, I've been through a Cat 1, I've been through a Cat 2, even maybe a mild Cat 3 hurricane. It didn't do a heck of a lot. Might have knocked some fences over, may have knocked some signs down. But you build this mentality of, I'm bulletproof. It's fine. We're going to be fine. We boarded up the house.
Yeah.
And 2 years prior, we had Hurricane Harvey come through Texas Panhandle or Texas Gulf Coast. And it was miserable. We didn't have any damage at our home personally, but we saw what it did to the Rockport area, to the Port Aransas area. We saw the amount of damage and destruction, and it only shifted to the north and missed us the last 3 hours before it made landfall. And I was on the phone with my brother, seeing this storm rapidly intensifying, heading his way, saying, get out of there. Get out of there. We just went through Harvey. If this thing is as bad as Harvey, then you are going to regret being there. And he was like, the Floridian attitude, right?
Yep. We never evacuated before, and everything up to that point was maybe a Category 2 or Category 3. And we didn't really feel like this storm had the potential to be as bad as it was. We went to bed the night before, and the weatherman was saying that it was going to be a strong Category 3. And we woke up early in the morning to turn on the TV to see the weatherman saying, get out now. And at that point, we were not prepared. I had boarded up some of the windows, so in the sense of staying there, we were prepared, but we weren't prepared to just pack up everything and leave. In hindsight, we should have just packed up what we had, grabbed our bare essentials, and just headed north. I didn't know what to expect, and the intensity of that storm when it hit was something I never want to experience again. Sitting in the bathroom with a mattress against the door, with my daughter and my wife and dogs and cats, waiting to see what's going to happen, hearing trees hit the house. I could feel the slab of the house under my butt moving because the roof had been ripped off, so now the air was coming into the house and it was trying to blow the rest of the roof off, and it was actually picking up the foundation of the home.
That's nuts.
My daughter was too young to really register a lot of this, so she wasn't too emotionally scarred from the experience. She doesn't remember it at all now, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But it was crazy. I'll never forget that. And now, so if another storm comes, we are not going to sit around and hope that it's a Category 3 or smaller. We're just going to pack our stuff and go. Unless it's just a small tropical storm, we're definitely going to get out of town. There's no sense in staying around. It's not fun being in a town with no power.
Yeah.
A lot of damage. Because after Hurricane Michael, the streets were filled with roofing shingles. And what goes with the shingles? Roofing nails. So within an hour of trying to drive around and check on some of my wife's family and friends, I had at least a dozen nails in each tire. And luckily, I didn't get it flat. But everyone was having the same issue. You did not want to get on the streets. You did not want to drive around unless you absolutely had to. And if you needed to get gas, you need to get water, you had to make a very long drive. And everybody was out trying to drive around.
Yeah.
The traffic was crazy. So you didn't know if you were going to make it back to the house before the sun went down. And when the sun goes down in a town with no power,
It's
that
eerie.
is destroyed, it is very eerie. And we had a very big looting problem. I had a piece of plywood that I'd found from, the neighbors, however it must have peeled off of a house during the storm. But I drug it over to my front yard and I spray painted on it with black spray paint. You loot, we shoot. And our neighborhood was hit pretty hard. Luckily, I didn't have to shoot anybody, but my neighbor almost did. And I was outside siphoning gas from my boat to put into my generator around, I think it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I could see the looters going down the street, going up and checking all the doors. And I'm standing at the back of my boat with my 9mm waiting, while I'm siphoning gas, waiting to see if these guys are going to actually try and come into our property. And they stopped 2 houses before they got to our house. I don't know why. I don't know I didn't make any noise. I was quiet. It was pitch black, but they never came up to our house. Thank God.
Yeah, when we got there, I brought my cousin with me. My wife's cousin, and we were doing kind of like night patrols out there as well. Remember, we'd get the flashlights and we'd go walking around because you don't know dark until you have a city that has no light pollution. All your power's gone. The only light we saw when we walked the neighborhood where some folks had whole house generators and the little light was on. Mm-hmm. But I remember we walked by one house, the house was gone, but the generator was still there and the light was on. And driving around was nerve-wracking. But between the telephone poles that were laying across the streets with all the wires exposed, between debris from roofs and homes and stuff just everywhere, it was crazy. When we first got into town, we saw entire families just aimlessly walking down the sidewalk with everything that they could carry in their arms because their houses were gone. This was the strangest thing for me. You would see cars driving down the road that you could tell had trees that had fallen on them. They were crushed in weird ways, but the car was still mobile, so they would drive the car to get whatever they need or whatever they could. And it was just strange to see these cars that should be totaled just driving up and down the road. And backtracking one more time, I'll tell you the most heart-wrenching moment for me was when I was talking to my brother, because I was actually making a business trip, and I had talked to my brother right when the storm was starting to hit. And he was on the phone with me, and he said he was looking out his window, and his neighbor's roof or fence was gone, and their roof was about to come apart, and you said, I need to go out and see if they need help. And then you hung up, and I didn't hear from him at all until the end. I didn't hear from him until we got there, because there was no cell phone service, nothing, until we made the drive. Was it 2 days later, a day later? I can't remember exactly. It was right when the storm had passed through.
I don't remember exactly. My brain was, in just a kind of a shell-shocked state.
Yeah.
So I don't remember exactly when you got there. I just knew that you were coming, and it was a huge relief to have you arrive with all of the supplies that you brought. I mean, you were a godsend. We really can't thank you enough for that. You helped us out tremendously. After the storm, we had no supplies. We had no, and when I say we, our city, we had no functioning grocery stores. We had no functioning gas stations. So the closest city was on the other side of the bridge. It was over, 15 miles from where we lived. And that's where you had to go. If you were trying to find anything, gas for your generator or water or food, you had to go over there because they didn't get hit as hard. And so that's what most of the city was trying to do at the same time. And you can imagine, with all of the trees down, with all the road debris, with all of the dilapidated cars trying to traverse across the city, it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare. And really, we didn't see any relief until a day or two after my brother arrived. We started seeing citizens coming over from, across town with pickup trucks loaded with gas containers, with water, and they were just driving down our street, just giving away as much as we could take. And so that was a blessing in disguise. That helped me fix more issues a little bit quicker. I knew before the storm that I was going to need gas, so I filled up the boat with gas, and then I also filled up the bilge with water to weigh it down. And thank God I did that. I had a Chevrolet Silverado at the time, Z71. It was a quad cab, and I hitched it to the boat before the storm. I felt like the more weight, the better. And if you can believe this, it's crazy. The boat and the truck took zero damage from any kind of debris, maybe a couple of roofing shingles, a couple of scratches here and there. My wife's car was parked right next to the boat in the driveway. Front windshield smashed out, back windshield smashed out, cars full of water. My Silverado, I got a crack in the windshield from something. It was a small crack. I really didn't even know it was there until, a few days later. But the biggest thing, and the reason that I sold it, was because the wind was coming in sideways, and at that speed and that velocity, it stripped all of the wax off of the right side of the frame under the truck. I didn't even know that this was happening, obviously, but about a month later, I noticed, I could see under the side of the truck, I noticed my frame was rusting. And I said, you know, I remember watching my brother's videos where he told me that the Chevy frames are wax coated. And I put one and one together, and I realized that the weather had stripped the wax coating off of the frame, and now the frame was starting to rust. It wasn't a lot of rust, but a little surface rust. I could tell that it was going to get worse. And so I decided to sell the truck, and it didn't take long to sell because I marked it down accordingly. And that's when I decided to go out and buy a Toyota Tundra, which I love. And that's what I'm currently driving. That's the vehicle that me and my family drove in to come over and visit my brother. And
by the way, we'll have a full video on that. But guys, this is just the first in a two-part video because the second part of this video is going to talk a lot about full-time RV living after a hurricane. And this is to give you context into why the second video is going to go into some of the things we talk about and what actually took place and the process of getting an RV. We're going to talk about the type of RV, the floor plan they got. It wasn't a big RV. It wasn't a Brookstone. It wasn't this.
Oh, no.
You know, it was definitely more in line with like the Legacy that we have, the Surveyor, just a little bit, just a hair bigger, maybe a couple feet bigger, and not even a bunkhouse type floor plan. But we're going to talk about that. And this video is going to, again, give you context into why they got that RV. So definitely, if you haven't had a chance, take a moment, hit that subscribe button. Thumbs up the video if you like the content, if you like what we're talking about. And we'll be right back.